Hey guys, my name's Piera, welcome to my channel, and today I'm here to tell you about my heart attack story. So for those of you who are new here, this isn't my usual kind of content, but it is a video that I feel I kind of want to make for a bunch of different reasons, which I'll get into. And if you have been here before, you will know this is not my usual content, and if you follow me on social media, you may have seen that I spent the last week in hospital after having a heart attack, which, what the fuck. I wanted to make this video for a bunch of different reasons. The first being just to explain to you guys what happened, just like a story time, but mostly because when I was looking for resources or information about what had happened to me, there weren't a lot of stories about women my age. I think the youngest I found was like 32. And I mean, when you think of a heart attack, you think of old people. I mean, I definitely thought of old people. I was definitely the youngest on the ward by like 30 years. I kind of want to, I guess, put this video out there for other young women in their 20s who may experience this, because it's apparently quite common. Open up that kind of conversation that if it is a common thing that does happen, what you kind of need to look for so it doesn't happen to you, and if it does happen to you, kind of how to go about it. So if that doesn't interest you, that's fine. This isn't something I'm going to be doing a lot of. I mean, obviously it'll probably make its way into my vlogs as I recover. This is just kind of a one-off, all-in, and that way when people ask me, Piera, what happened? I can be like, watch this video, because I don't want to explain it again. So as I'm filming this, it is Monday the 4th of November. So I'll start with, up until this point, I am completely healthy. I have depression, I have a bit of anxiety, but mental health-wise, physically, I'm a little bit anemic every now and again, but I'm ultimately healthy, what you would call a healthy person. Disclaimer, don't go to the gym, it'll try and kill you. I woke up on Tuesday morning, I had work later in the day, I had a doctor's appointment, and then I thought, before all this, I'm just gonna go to the gym, kind of get in a little bit of a workout. I've just started trying to bulk up and get quite muscular, so it was like my second day at the gym. I did my basic little workout, which was actually, in my opinion, not that difficult, because I was, like I said, I'm easing back into it. So I did a leg press, I did leg extensions, I did a rowing machine, and then I did lat pull downs. So I'm doing the lat pull downs, and I realized that it's probably pretty heavy. I think I was on like 30 kilos, which for me, I'm quite small. But anyway, so I did that. And then I got in my car and I went home. And when I got home, it's about a 7-minute drive, I started feeling a bit of pain in my chest. And that's not unusual for me in terms of, I'm unfit, I guess, when you put it that way. I'm not super healthy, super fit. So I was just like, it's just a pain from doing heavy lifting. The pain kind of started getting more intense. So I kind of grabbed my water bottle, and I sat down on my couch and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna breathe through it. I've been known to, I guess, overheat sometimes and get a little bit lightheaded, but this was a really weird pain. It was just kind of like central here. The way I described it to everyone I met was, it felt like someone had like a spear and had just speared me straight through the chest and out my back, because it was kind of directly through front and back. And so I'm lying on my couch and it's quite a sharp pain. Like it's like the stabbing, but it was also just like this really hard compression, I guess, like something was just pushing down on my chest, which I was like, okay, like, not too dramatic. So I tried to call Jacob. He works like 5 minutes across the street. So I was just gonna be like, hey, not feeling well, just if you can come home, let me know. He didn't answer, and that's when I noticed that my left arm started tingling, and I wouldn't have thought anything of it normally, but because I've spent time in hospitals, or I've watched a lot of doctor shows, or I've been aware of that was a sign of a possible heart attack. And I was like, I'm 26, I'm healthy, I'm not having a heart attack. And so I was just kind of like, oh, this is okay. And at this point, I'm panicking a little bit because I'm in a lot of pain and I can't really breathe. So I called 000. And I'm struggling at this point to kind of get out my address, my name, or my details. I kind of just want to be like, please send someone, I think I'm dying. At this point, I didn't think I was dying, mind you. I was just like, oh, I'm being a bit dramatic. Like, I probably didn't need to call an ambulance. It'll probably subside in a minute. Like, let's just chill out. But I called the ambulance and I was like, I'm having chest pain, my arm is tingling, and then I started feeling really nauseous. And at this point, I'm clammy, like I'm really sweaty and I'm hot from what I remember. Like, at this point, I'm a little spacey. I'm not completely conscious, but I'm not unconscious, but I'm not, you know, when you're in like an emergency or a trauma and it's you, like not you watching, but it's you, and you're outside your body in a weird way. At this point, I kind of jump on the floor. Well, I kind of flop on the floor. I'm not moving very quickly. Roll over onto the floor because I felt like I was gonna throw up, and we've got wooden floors, so I was like, fuck it, if I throw up on the floor, I throw up on the floor, which I proceeded to do. I hadn't eaten anything that morning except for like half of a fruit bar, so there wasn't much coming up. And then I'd finished the conversation with the ambulance. It surprised me that they hung up. For some reason, I thought they would stay on the phone with me until the ambulance got there. I'm lying next to a pool of my own vomit on my floor, and my cat Artemis is like, she does this thing thing when I'm in any sort of physical pain, sits next to me and nuzzles into my hand until I'm patting her, which I don't know if that's just her being like, give me attention, or if it's her knowing that I'm stressing or in pain or something, but she does that in a way, and I can focus on her as opposed to panicking in myself. So I'm patting my cat and trying to stay calm for my cat. I'm trying to be like, it's okay, baby, mummy's fine. And at this point, I'm like, okay, something's wrong. I'm lying on my back, just trying to breathe. I remember thinking like, you need to calm down because this stressing isn't gonna help. Like, you need to be able to breathe. And at that time, I called my best friend who lives a few minutes down the road and had the day off. Thank God she had the day off. At this point, I, again, couldn't really breathe. I was like, Bree, just called an ambulance. Please call Jacob, let him know something's wrong. And then she's like, okay, I'm calling him, I'm on my way. And she's a nurse, so she's very calm in that sort of situation. So she was on her way. I didn't think I was dying, and I wasn't afraid of dying. And funnily enough, there's this quote from one of my favorite books it says, death is easy once you've already tried to find it. And that, for some reason, that's what I was thinking about as I was laying on my floor pretty much dying. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was just like, I just remember thinking, the ambulance is gonna get here, they're gonna give me something for the pain, and I'm gonna feel a lot better, and I'm gonna feel like an idiot for having called an ambulance. Within maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, the ambulance got here. I kind of managed to crawl to my front door to unlock the door. They came in, and this is where it kind of gets a little hazy because I think the pain kind of took over. Well, I remember being cannulaed. I remember having like blood pressure taken. I remember them talking, hooking me up to like an ECG. I remember me trying to explain what was happening or what had happened. And then at that point, Jacob was there, and then Bree was there, and my body started maybe going into shock, I'm not quite sure, but tensing a lot. So I'm kind of lying on the floor and my whole body is it's just tensing up, and I feel like I looked like Voldemort from Harry Potter when he looks like this. I just remember being in so much pain that my body just wasn't responding to my brain, and I wanted to lay flat on my back, but because I've got really pointy shoulder blades, I couldn't, and if I kind of moved like that, it hurt. It was a weird movement thing, so like depending on where I moved, it hurt more. I managed to get loaded onto a stretcher and taken in the ambulance. When we got in the ambulance, they called for backup because they're like, it's not, my symptoms weren't typical, they were like atypical, and the first ECG that they had taken had shown quite significant changes. It didn't look like it should, and so they were like, we just want to get a second set of eyes on this just to make sure it's not bad. I'm calming down a little bit, I can breathe more. They've given me like some pain meds or something that are just kind of, it's still hurting, but it's not hurting as much. They gave me this spray, which I now know is called Angina Spray, under the tongue, which essentially opens up all of your arteries to make blood flow easier. So they gave me that, and every time he gave it to me, he's like, you're gonna get a wicked headache. And like some fentanyl, which is a pain medication, and I don't remember exactly what they were giving me, but I remember it. I was able to talk, and I was joking, and I was like, oh, you know, don't go to the gym, it'll kill you, and just making really like light jokes like, oh, it's probably just a pulled muscle, and I'm a bit of an idiot for calling an ambulance, and I feel okay now. And within 5 minutes in the ambulance, when the second team came and they were assessing me and everything, I felt a lot better. Like, I still felt pain in my chest, but I didn't feel like I was dying. They took me to the hospital. We get to the hospital, and they do an echo, which is like a heart ultrasound. So I'm getting like hooked up to all these things. People are seeing my nipples like nobody's business. I don't care at this point. I'm like, oh, I got them pierced, they look good, but I'm also a little bit out of it. I'm very tired off of whatever they gave me. So they did that, and they were explaining, they did a few more ECGs. They were like, you know, your first ECG was real weird. It's chilling out a bit more now, but that first one is what concerns us, which to me didn't make sense. I was like, well, I was in trauma, so of course it was weird, but now that it's okay, I'm okay, right? More drugs, another cannula. At this point I look like a fucking pin cushion. I got a chest x-ray as well, and mind you, the whole time that I'm here, I'm thinking they're gonna make me take out my nipple piercings, and I just fucking got them, and I love them so much, and they're gonna make me take them out. And they didn't. I managed to just avoid it. And so then they moved me to another room, and they were like, you can't eat just in case we need to do something else. And then eventually I got moved up to the coronary care unit, which I didn't realize is like an important place. It's not just like a casual room, it's like a, we need to be able to see you at all times to make sure you don't die. And so the first day that I was there, it was much of the same. I had another, like a proper deep echocardiogram or whatever it's called, and then a CT scan. So the CT scan was obviously, you know, you go onto that weird machine that like you see in like movies, and they give you this dye, this contrast dye, which is one of the worst feelings, and it's not bad, but it's weird. Like, they inject you with this drug and you just get this hot flush all down your body. It makes you feel like you've pissed yourself. You have not pissed yourself. But anyway, at this point I'm fucking hungry because I haven't eaten all day. And so I'm angry, and I'm kind of like, why am I here? Like, I feel okay. Like, yeah, whatever happened, but I'm feeling fine-ish now. So can I go home? Then the doctors came around and they were like, hey, like your echocardiogram was fine, your CT was fine, like they both show something weird in your heart that we just kind of want to have a look at. Not really stressed, but like you can't go home. And so I was like, oh, that's really annoying. I don't want to stay a night in the hospital. I just want to go home to my cats. Like, I feel like I'm being dramatic. Like, it's probably just a pulled muscle. Later that night, like, I was just sitting there, again, feeling pretty fine, apart from, like, the occasional twinge, but nothing dramatic. So I call in my nurse, and another nurse comes in, and I'm just like, hey, like, I feel okay. Like, can I go? Like, I'm not really... I feel like I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be in this ward. Like, I feel like a bit of a fraud, to be honest. And so she's like, oh, I'm not your nurse, but I'll go check. And so as she's leaving, my nurse is coming in, and just outside the curtain, I hear her go, oh, she said she's feeling okay, like, can we let her go? And then my nurse goes, from what I hear, she goes, no, she just had a heart attack. And this is the first time I'm hearing heart attack, and I'm just like, what? I'm a fetus. I don't have heart attacks. I was very confused. I was like, nah, the fuck? You know, I noticed on the cardiac ward, everyone is at least 50 plus, which I was kind of like, every time a doctor or someone walked in, they'd be like, Miss Forde, where's your grandma or your mother or whoever had the heart attack? And I was like, that's me. And they're like, but you're so young. And I was like, didn't stop my heart attack. And a lot of other weird jokes. Okay, but I'm cool, but I feel okay. So are you sure? Like, you're probably wrong. And so I ended up staying the night, and they put me on blood thinners overnight and fluids, which I was kind of like, oh, it's a bit excessive. Like, let's just calm down. And by then, like, a few of the drugs had made me pretty tired, so I slept all right. So that's day one. I fall asleep and I wake up the next day. And by then there's already talk of things like surgery. And I'm already kind of like, oh, like, I'm cool. Like, I feel completely fine. Like, I do not need surgery. And so the next day the doctor comes in and he's like, hey, look, we weren't super happy with your blood results overnight. So essentially my troponin levels, which from my understanding, and I'm not a doctor, is chemical that is released when your heart is in trauma. Again, that's probably not what it is, but that's essentially what I got from it, and it's supposed to be at like 20. And when I came in from, like, when I first got there, it was 400, and then it had gotten to 2,500 and something. And so already then I'm just like, the fuck? I was like, oh, but I feel okay. And so this whole time I'm just like, please let me go home. Like, I feel so fine. I'm like, I'll just take it easy. I won't go back to gym. Like, no problems. And so they were like, look, from the results of the CT scan and the echogram, we are going to probably do an angiogram. That's when I started getting a little scared, because they're like, essentially we're gonna go in through your femoral artery in your groin, thread a little catheter thing up into your heart, release a dye that will then show us if any of the arteries are blocked or damaged or anything like that. And I was like, no, please no. So I started getting a little bit scared. I've never had surgery before, I've never had a procedure, I've never been under anesthetic. So I was just kind of like, what the fuck is going on? That morning, Jacob came up, he took the day off work to sit with me because I was pretty scared. I had a cry to the nurse. And mind you, this whole, like, all through Tuesday, they were like, you have to, like, I'm hooked up to an ECG, so I'm constantly attached to the, you know, the thing that they stick all over your chest. I'm attached to that, so I can't leave my room. So when I need to pee, which is a lot because I'm on fluids, they bring me in, it's called a commode, but it's just a chair with a hole in it and a bedpan. And I was like, you know, if I was 60, I probably wouldn't care, but I'm 26 and I feel embarrassed. But I'm like, they're nurses, they do this all the time. They probably do it for a lot more gross things than me, but okay. So I peed in a chair twice, it was real weird. About like 11 o'clock, they come get me for that. So they give me a Valium to calm me down, because at this point I'm already panicking, which is not good for your heart. So I had this lovely, lovely nurse who was this Italian man, and he's like, Piera, you're Italian, right? I was like, I'm a bad Italian. I mean, I eat a lot of pasta, but that's about it. But anyway, he was lovely. All of my team was lovely. Like, not a single problem with any of them. They were fantastic. I'm laying there and they were kind of explaining to me what's going to go on, and at this point I'm already scared, because before I went in they made me watch this video of like what can go on, and mind you, every single fucking person in this video is 60 plus. It's not tailored to young people. So I was just like, what is going on? It's at this point that I'm realizing that I'm not immortal. Like, I'm feeling very mortal at this point, which is just not for me. And so at this point they give me, I'm already like kind of wacky off of Valium, but they give me a local anesthetic in my leg so I don't feel anything. And as this is going on and they're still prepping, I'm getting more scared. So my lovely Italian nurse was like, I'm gonna give you the drug that we give people now to kind of knock you out a little bit. And I thought it was the Twilight drug, which apparently you don't remember anything, but I remember pretty much everything. But I wasn't in pain or nervous, so that was the main thing. I get that and I start feeling it. It reminds me of when I had alopecia. I would get pethidine, which would kind of, again, whack you out a little bit. You know, you're conscious and you can remember things if you try really hard, but you're not really there, you know? From my understanding is they make a little incision into your femoral artery in your groin. You can also do it in your wrist, but they did it in my groin. And they thread up a very long fucking thing into your heart. And at this point, I'm not really feeling anything. Every now and again, I do feel a little bit of a twinge in my heart. Not painful, just kind of like, that's not supposed to be there. But I'm pretty whacked out. My eyes are shut. I'm thinking of Victra, of all things, from Red Rising. And then they gave me that contrast dye again, and I felt the rush of the hot. Surprisingly, not painful at all. I mean, I was so out of it that every now and again my nurse would be like, Piera, 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 and I'm like, yeah, what's up? So yeah, I think it probably took all of like half an hour, and then they wheeled me back into my room. I'm still pretty out of it. I opened my eyes enough to see Jacob there, and I'm like, and then I'm back out. Everything was fine. We'll have answers later. So for the next hour, you have to lay completely straight. And I was like, that's fine, because I'm drugged out of my brain anyway. And then for the next 3 hours, you can lay at a 30-degree angle. But Jacob did get this footage of me waking up at some point and rapping Eminem. Because I am nothing if not on brand. So for the rest of the night, for the rest of the day, I was just kind of in and out of sleep. I was allowed to eat after that, so when they brought around the hospital food, I had some of that. At the end of the night, I was feeling a lot better. I was able to get up, go to the toilet, have a shower, which was just the first shower I've had in 3 days, so I felt fantastic. But then I woke up on the Thursday, and I was like expecting to go home that day, because I was like, cool, I'm good. And my doctor came in that morning and he's like, all right, we figured it out. I was like, oh, great, finally. So it's like, what you have is called spontaneous coronary artery dissection, which essentially means that the coronary arteries in my heart, one of them, the anti-lateral one, split, broke, decided to have a shit fit. And so if this is my artery, right, bear with me, and this is the lining of my artery, it's split. And so it's flapping around, it's hanging down here. And so essentially it's like this, but because the blood is going through it, it's clotting in this little area here because it can't get through, which is what caused the heart attack. So, did have a heart attack, the fuck, but it was a SCAD-induced heart attack, or what they're saying is that it was an aborted anti-lateral STEMI, which is eventually like, it was a heart attack, but when we gave you drugs, it was like, okay, I'm cool, which is what that angina spray was at the beginning to open my arteries, which essentially stopped me going into heart failure and dying. And at this point, everyone's telling me if you didn't call the ambulance when you did, you would probably be dead, or it would have been a lead up to dying without getting attention. And so I was like, oh, glad I called the ambulance then, because I didn't want to call the ambulance. I didn't feel I needed to call the ambulance until my arm started tingling. So essentially for the rest of the day, they were figuring out what medications I'd need to be on, and I had a bunch of people from like cardiac rehab coming in. So they're giving me all these papers and all these things tailored to old people, once again, kind of being like, this is how life is going to be now. And originally I was just kind of like, oh, how fucking annoying. Like, oh, I'll be fine. Like, yeah, cool. Like, oh, had a heart attack. Whatever. I'm fit, healthy, whatever, moving on. And so that day was just a lot of information. It was, I cried a little bit because it was just a lot all at once and it would hit me randomly. For example, so I'm now on 3 new medications every day for the foreseeable future, which is 3 to 6 to 12 months, which is the thing that annoyed me the most. Because most of you may know I've spent the last 6 months trying really fucking hard to come off my antidepressants, which have not been easy, in order to have a baby. I don't want to be on anything whilst pregnant. So essentially I was literally a week off of coming off of that, and maybe like a week off of coming off my pill for good. So close. And then my heart's like, fuck you. 2 blood thinners and a beta blocker, which essentially slows your heart rate down and just lets it focus on strong beats as opposed to just lots of beats, which is weird for me because I usually have such a high heart rate. That day was a lot. I expected to go home that night. They didn't let me go home that night. So the next morning when I woke up on the Friday, they were like, okay, you could probably go home. Like, we'll unhook you. Like, you're allowed to walk around now. I was allowed to walk like 100 meters. Wild, I know. And so when the doctor came in, it was a new doctor, he's like, okay, cool, so you're saying another day? I was like fucking hell I am. And luckily, because I've been pretty much fine since I got there, and all my nurses were aware, they're like, nah, like her doctor said she can go home, like, we'll just keep an eye on it, blah, blah, blah. So essentially I got to go home on Friday, which was brilliant and fantastic, and all I wanted to do was shower and wash my hair. So I'm now 4 days out of hospital, and the last 3 days have been maybe like a 5. Funnily enough, I miss depression. Like, I'm still depressed, but now I'm depressed about something else. I'm depressed about my body not working, which is, I guess, now me getting into what SCAD is. Kind of, this is more of the part of the video for people who have had SCAD, or I guess want to know what SCAD is. Spontaneous coronary artery dissection is apparently, like, it's rare, but it is most common in 35% of young, fit, healthy women. That being said, all of the resources that I have found have been 30 plus. So I'm kind of like a young outlier, but it's not completely unheard of. So as I said earlier, SCAD is essentially when you, because it's spontaneous, we're not sure what caused it, but we're like 99.9% sure it was the strain from doing the chest pull down at such a heavy weight. We're just gonna go with that was the general theory. I mean, it could be linked to a bunch of other things, which I'm being tested for in the next week. No family history of anything, no personal history of anything, like it's completely spontaneous. Like I said, dissection caused a blockage, caused a heart attack. And so what I'm on now, as I said earlier, are 2 blood thinners, which will ensure no clotting. So essentially from my understanding, it is self-healing and it'll just heal itself, which I was already kind of like, what the fuck? But so I'm on the 2 blood thinners and a beta blocker, which I said earlier is to slow my heart rate so it can focus on like strong single beats, like a really sick drum rhythm, as opposed to just going like douche, 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 which mine essentially did. And I didn't really think too much of it until like the next day when I can kind of feel it in my body. Like my body's so used to having a heart rate that is high and I guess thick blood, and it's not, and I don't know, I've never really thought about the effects that medication has on my body, which is really weird. That's what I found my biggest struggle to be, is my body not cooperating with my brain. Like my brain, I feel fine. I mean, yes, I get sad about it every now and again, but I'm not thinking about it as much as I'm thinking about that I'm tired all the time now, or that every single twinge in my body might cause another heart attack. And I'm not afraid of another one, I'm afraid of being in that pain and living with a physical ailment, which isn't like, it's not a big deal because so many people have so many other kinds of physical disabilities that they live with and they're fine. Someone who has been healthy and fit her entire life to all of a sudden not be, it's just a really weird, and it's obviously not as debilitating as a lot of physical things that have happened to other people, but for me it's been a lot. And so it's being tired, it's thinking that every chest pain is gonna essentially just back up in hospital where I don't want to be. But the one that's fucked me up the most is, so the leg that I've had my angiogram in has become, I feel really weak on my legs, essentially. Like that leg feels like it's constantly got a muscle twinge or a pain, or like the end of pins and needles, and I feel like I constantly have to like elevate it, stretch it, move it, muscle it, which is, look, the least of all concerns, but like I said, as someone who has never had a physical ailment before, it's weird. And so like today is the first day that I haven't noticed it actually tinging, and to be fair, I've been sitting a lot today, so we'll see when I get up. And so the thing about, I guess, SCAD for younger people is a lot of the information that you'll find is tailored to older people. And so for example, the recovery that they've given me is essentially a month off of work, 2 weeks off of driving, and just taking things in such small steps that are more tailored for old people. Like I have a thing here that's just like, you can go riverbank fishing in week 3, and I was like, who the fuck? Anyway, I'm talking to my rehab cardiologist. She's like, look, it's not so much about what the document says or what your heart rate is, it's how you feel within yourself. And so, you know, on my first week, my week 1 of activities I can do, it says like no housework, lots of rest, no lifting anything over 2 kilos. And because I'm younger and healthier and fitter than who this was written for, I'm already doing that sort of stuff and feeling fine. Like, yes, I said it takes it out of me a lot. Yes, I'm more careful with anything that will strain my body and kind of put that strain on it. But there are still things I can do that is in like week 4. So it's weird. And I would say, I mean, like I said, I'm only 4 days into coming home. I'm only almost a week out from the actual event. Things could change. But at the moment, like I said, apart from just noticing that my legs tire quicker, I'm fine. I feel fine. So just kind of, I would say, listen to yourself and know your own limits. Like, I'm not about to go back to the gym. I'm kind of like, they're like, take a month off of work. I was like, I'll take about a week. Like, I'm at a job now that luckily enough I can have, I guess, light duties or people around me who can do the heavy lifting or the straining and stuff like that for me. Whereas tomorrow I have cardiac rehab, which will be me and a bunch of fucking old people lifting 1 kilo weights and walking on a treadmill. And there's more to it than that, but that's essentially it. Like, I will be the youngest person there, and it won't be tailored to me, so I just kind of need to figure out how to recover. And the worst thing about me specifically is, like, I don't slow down, I don't stop. So the week that I was in hospital, I was like, fuck, I've got so much work to do, I need to be doing things that I don't even want to be doing, like going to the gym. Depends on you. Like, I feel like I could go back to the gym and do light boxing. I feel like I could, you know, drive a car. I feel like I could have sex, which apparently I'm not allowed to do for 2 weeks, but so I would just say listen to yourself is essentially it. This video is super long as it is. If you have SCAD, have experienced SCAD, and you are a young woman, reach out to me and we'll have a chat, because the fuck am I talking to myself and a bunch of book lovers who give no fucks about your heart attack. Anyway, the point of this video was to just kind of be like, A, what happened, and B, if you're a young woman who's had a heart attack from SCAD, you're not alone, woo! But I'm here and I can chat to you if you want. We'll see, like there are definitely days that are better than other days, and there will be things that my body will not let me do that I could have done before, and I'm scared of that, but we'll figure it out. My other thing was, thank you all for your love, comments, tweets, messages about your positive thoughts. Really appreciate it. Like, for starters, fuck your positive thoughts, send burritos. I appreciate being in your thoughts, so thank you for that. And now back to your regular scheduled viewing with more books. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.